Oh, thanks. There's any number of chapters in this book that could be subtitled My Big Mouth. No surprise. Speaking of Prime Minister Prince Dreamboat, this takes place some few years ago. The CBC was doing a live coast-to-coast broadcast from Parliament Hill on July 1st. I don't remember who else might have been on the bill, but it was a big show with national exposure and a lovely government paycheck. The stage was set up near the Chateau Laurier on the north side of the hotel. It was handy, as the CBC has its offices in the studios in the chateau, which must have cost the taxpayers a fortune, but it was worth every penny as far as we were concerned, as the chateau had a couple of good restaurants and a really superior bar just off the lobby. It was around this time that Margaret, the wife of our then Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau, was making an unwelcome and unseemly splash in the domestic and international press. There had been some speculation as to just why a man who was generally considered an intellectual would have paired up with a self-styled flower child nearly half his age, but the two of them did spawn a number of kids, one of whom at this writing is the handsome and charismatic, albeit untested leader of the Liberal Party, who is poised to replace our current Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, who has all the appeal of an inflamed rectal polyp in the personal charm of John Wayne Gacy. In any case, while Pierre had been busy with affairs of state, Margaret had been seen cavorting in places like Club 54 in New York and hanging about in Toronto with the Rolling Stones, and no harm in that, but there began to appear a lot of tabloid photos of her looking disheveled and even blanker than usual. There was talk of cocaine use and pot smoking, and finally there was a front page shot of her sitting with Ron Wood at some gathering, and in her haste to rejoin the party from wherever she had been, she had apparently forgotten her knickers. Letters to the editor were written, and call-in shows had a field day. In the House of Commons, ministers harumphed, and desks were thumped, and after a few weeks, Pierre called his errant bride home. It was also around this time that Maureen McTeer had published a memoir, which, among other things, was written partly to counter the public perception that her husband, Joe Clark, our former Prime Minister, was less like a confused and sleepy turtle and was a much more vibrant and exciting person than he was perceived as being. She even alluded to the fact that he was actually some sort of dynamo in the sack, and their activities in the marital bed went well beyond what one might expect from the leader of the Conservative Party. It didn't bear thinking about. Well, the point of all this is that a joke began circulating which went, "What do Margaret Trudeau and Maureen McTeer have in common?" Answer, every once in a while they both blow a little dope. Not much of a joke, admittedly. Still, a few hours later, as Stan and David and I were standing on stage waiting to commence our show, there was some sort of glitch and the satellite connection went down. The audience out front could hear us, of course, but on the radio there was only silence, and the engineers scrambled madly to fix the problem. Back in Toronto at the main studio, as a deep-voiced and authoritative announcer was no doubt saying, "One moment, please," every few seconds, though we were recording of Mozart's Requiem. I could see panic spreading through the technical crew. I had spent the better part of the afternoon relaxing in the Chateau bar, drinking martinis, courtesy of the Canadian taxpayer, and I was feeling pretty relaxed. I loafed up to the mic and cleared my throat and said, "So, what do Marie McTeer and Margaret Trudeau have in common?" The audience laughed, as they all knew the punchline, but there were high-pitched castrati screams from the tech crew who had just received word in their headsets that the satellite link had been re-established and we were going live coast to coast in a few seconds. I was tackled and thrown to the stage by some panicked CBC staff. I got up and brushed myself off, and we were introduced on air, and we did our show while various members of the CBC crew reeled about, clutching their chests and calling for brandy. It had been a close call. We played well enough, and there were no further incidents, but as we came off stage, some large and senior and terrified CBC staff member grabbed me and threatened to have us banned from the airwaves forever. Stan never mentioned the incident or gave me hell over it. He was used to my verbal indiscretions by now, and in any case, it hadn't gone out over the airwaves, so no harm, no foul. We packed up and stored our gear in the security tent, and I headed over to the Chateau bar. Being on the radio was thirsty work. There were thousands of people milling around. Various diplomats and grandees were standing about being interviewed by TV crews, and there were Ottawa City Police and RCMP officers in full dress and large bulky men in dark suits and Ray-Bans who talked into their sleeves, keeping a close watch on things. A few hours before, as I was going to the gig, I noticed a large leather briefcase under a side table by the wall next to the bank of elevators. It was still there. Huh. I wondered who might have left it there. It was a nice case. But the more I looked at it, the less I liked it. It was not so very long ago that the FLQ had been active, kidnapping diplomats and blowing up mailboxes. This was the big national holiday. The place was jammed. It was the perfect time to make some sort of statement. I went over to a Mountie. Excuse me, I just noticed the briefcase under the table over there. It hasn't moved in about 4 hours. I'll give the boy credit. He didn't hesitate or ask questions or demand to see my ID. That came later. He got on his radio, and the lobby and the bar and the whole damn hotel was emptied and cordoned off within minutes. Specialists were called in, sandbags were put up, and the bomb unit found the case to contain only some paper documents along with a cheese and olive loaf sandwich, which was by now long past its best before date. The owner was located and order was restored. Stan happened along just as I was finishing my interview with a couple of guys in uniform. Was that you? What? Was that you that caused all that? What? The sirens and the cops and the army coming in? The army? I didn't know the army was called in. Wow. Yes, the army. Hundreds of men in uniform with machine guns and tanks and helicopters. It's fantastic. I never knew. But that was you. Well, yeah. Jesus, let's get out of here. I can't leave you alone for a damn minute. Fine by me. My work here is done.